Welcome back to Learn SKN, and we are continuing to look at the May-June 2024 CAPE Management of Business Paper 2. So we completed question 1 in a prior video, and so we're going to complete question 2 now. So you know what to do. Like, subscribe, hit notification bell so you know when Learn SKN drops another CAPE MOB video. So we're going to just jump into the question 2 from module 2, and remember I said that the amended CAPE syllabus went into effect from exam year 2024. So this paper would be one of the first papers that has the new approach, the more in-depth case study approach that CAPE is trying to use, right? Because you know a lot of you guys out there, you love the ChatGPT, you love the Gemini AI, and so you may want to just regurgitate certain things, but no, you want to know if you're thinking on your feet, if you're able to apply the theories that you learn to whatever scenario is given to you, right? So that's why this approach here is necessary, so we don't just regurgitate what's out there. So let's go. Number 2. All you need in electronics is owned by Moses Jack, an IT graduate of Hanover University in the island of Hanover. Over the past 6 months, customer complaints about the poor quality of repair have been increasing. Mr. Jack last checked several of his customers were no longer bringing their computers to his business for repairs. In addition, the steady increase in customers 4 per year has fallen off to the point where there were no new customers for the past 12 months. Wow, that's a little rough for Jack, boy. Mr. Jack prides himself on having high emotional intelligence and excellent communication skills. He believes that his personal qualities should help him to solve the poor performance problem, even though he did not do any management courses while at university. Okay, we had a mouthful there. So let's see what questions they're asking us. Alright, A. Define each of the following terms: emotional intelligence, communication. So those are 4 markers right there. So let's go. Now, emotional intelligence speaks to, it's a two-way street, right? It's about your ability to perceive, to look at and understand the emotions of someone else and then act accordingly, and also your ability to understand your emotions and understand how your emotions can guide your decision, can guide your behavior. So it's a two-way street. It's the ability of you to actually watch somebody and say, okay, I can see what they're going through right now. Let me not say something in a certain way. Because you know sometimes persons can't read a room, right? You see somebody, they're down and whatever, and then they go and try to make a joke, and then the person's not in the mood, right? So someone with low emotional intelligence cannot read that, cannot read the emotion and know how to act accordingly. Same way with yourself. You have to be able to know what you're going through, understand your emotions, and then know how you are going to behave in those circumstances. So if you know that if I'm upset, if I'm angry, I might cuss somebody or whatever, understand, okay, I'm upset right now, so let me not go and speak to somebody about a certain thing. Because if I do, I know myself, I'm going to just bite off their head, right? So that's the gist of emotional intelligence. And of course, communication speaks to where you have a two-way street. Again, communication is not just one way. It's a two-way street. You must be able to convey a message, and that message received effective communication, how you wanted it to be received, and then you get the necessary feedback for that whole message. So if you want like a working definition, we can say communication is basically the process of exchanging information through various mediums, right? Remember I say it's two-way street. So exchange mean I say something and you say something back. So I receive, conveying information, that kind of thing, through various mediums, right? So that is communication in a nutshell, right? The process of exchanging or conveying information through various mediums. Okay, so 2 marks each, right? We got 4 marks so far. Okay, so you did not agree, You do not argue that Mr. Jack can solve the management problems with only emotional intelligence and communication skills. You are an HRM expert and would like to assist him to improve the profitability of his business. So human resource there. Describe how Mr. Jack should conduct the function of management known as controlling. So remember, we look at some functions of management. So controlling, how should Mr. Jack conduct his controlling within his organization? Right? Should he just put your foot down on everybody and say, okay, do this, do that, or else? Or what is a better way of doing it? So if we look at our textbook here, right, controlling, right, in carrying out this function, managers are expected to evaluate and correct activities to ensure that the business is on track to attain its objectives. That's controlling right there. Controlling usually follows the process of measuring performance, comparing actual performance with the firm's objectives, highlighting variances, that's the difference between what they want and what they actually got, and taking the necessary steps to correct any shortfall. So in controlling, right, Mr. Jack can do some kind of evaluation, right? You must carry out the evaluation part of it. So you have to evaluate what's happening in your organization and then make the necessary correction to what's happening in the organization to achieve your objectives. Because he's talking about, employees, the workers, not the workers, the customers are not happy, they're not satisfied, they start bringing them stuff. So you see the problem there, you see what's happening. So you evaluate the situation and then you put whatever is needed in place to help you now achieve your objectives. So if you're looking here, that he just can't use emotional intelligence and communication, right? He must be able to control what is happening. And so he have to evaluate and then make corrective measures. So if you realize, okay, poor quality, complaints about poor quality, go and evaluate and see, okay, what is happening here? Why is there this complaint? Okay, poor quality. So let me make the corrective measures now. So person is saying, okay, they rush the job, when they look on the computer, you still have a problem, that kind of thing. To evaluate the situation and then put in place the corrective measures to ensure, let's say somebody using poor parts to repair the computers, poor RAM or whatever. You have to evaluate the situation. What is the nature of this poor quality of work? And then now you see it, you make the corrective measure for that. That is controlling, right? It doesn't mean that you have to bust around, bully anybody. That is the way of controlling your organization. So describe how Jack should conduct the function of known as controlling. Again, you have to evaluate what is happening and then make the necessary corrections to make sure that you're achieving what you need to. So he said usually follows the process of measuring performance. So you see that quality is poor, comparing the actual to what you wanted, to your objective. So he's seeing that, okay, I want high quality repairs, but not happening like that. And then based on the difference, people complaining, then make these steps to correct what's happening. So that's the process there of controlling that Mr. Jack could put in place. Don't just there sleeping and say, oh well, why am I going to just use my emotional intelligence and whatever to try to, and communication and try to correct. No, see what the problem is, evaluate, and then you put the necessary steps in place to correct the problem. Alright, Paul is an informal leader in the computer repair department. Mr. Jack sees him as a threat and is planning to dismiss him from the post of senior repair technician. Now, the question here is now, explain two ways Paul's presence in the department could be beneficial to Jack's effective management of the business, right? So, look at that, informal leader. So, two ways. Now, Jack can use Paul as basically a proxy, right? A proxy. Someone who can, so you can get Paul in your good graces, and then whatever issues you're having, you can relay them to Paul, so Paul can speak to the rest technicians, and so then you can use Paul to encourage, to motivate the rest of them, because the rest of them following Paul, because he's an informal leader. And so you can tap into that as a boss and say, okay, well, everybody following me? This is what I want implemented, so let me talk to Paul, see if get Paul on board, so that Paul can, help me to sell the idea to, the rest of the technicians in the department. So that's one way you can use him, right? Also, he can use Paul, right? He can use Paul to be that, in essence, that translator, in a sense, you want to put it like that, right? He can use Paul to be that person to break down certain ideas and to communicate, right? He can use Paul as a medium to communicate more effectively with the rank and file. So if there's an issue coming down and you want to maybe break it to the rank and file, you can say, okay, Paul, this is what, right? The business might be, not shutting down, being extreme, but the business might be restructuring. And so this is what's going to happen. He laid out to Paul. Now, Paul can go now and speak to on the same level as his co-workers. He's the person working in the department. And so he can help to soften the blow of certain information. So you can use Paul. So let's look at the two we discussed just now. You can use Paul as a communication medium, right, to communicate with the rest of the staff, because they look at Paul, they respect Paul as a leader. So you can use Paul to communicate and break down whatever management is thinking, right there. You can also use Paul as a proxy to motivate, right? To motivate the employees, the rank and file, motivate them to do better, influence them to work harder, to do whatever. You can use Paul to stir up that level of motivation within the organization to get people to buy in to certain things in the organization. You can use Paul for those type of roles. You can also use Paul as, let's say, a role model, right? For somebody young, up and coming worker. Somebody just come in, you say, okay, Paul, look here. We get a new worker. I want you to just work with him, talk to him, groom him, get him ready for what this job is all about. So you can use Paul as basically a mentor to supervise and to manage and to just motivate. Not only motivate, but this one different to motivating. We're talking about using Paul as the coach, right? The mentor for the mentee to break in the new workers, because sometimes some people are not going to listen to authority. They have a deaf ear to authority, and so that goes with the communication part too. But for this one, you can use Paul's expertise, use Paul's knowledge base of the organization to basically orient, if you want to put it like that, orient the new workers, give them a little orientation into how things are done within the organization, right? So all those are ways you can use Paul as an informal leader, because understand that Paul has influence. That's the biggest thing. Paul has influence, and so you don't want to make an enemy of Paul, right? You don't want to make an enemy of Paul if you're Mr. Jack, right? Because people listen to Paul. Because if Paul says, let go strike, they might go strike. If they dismiss Paul, they fire Paul, right? Everybody will kick up like, what happened? You fire the man ain't do nothing. All of a sudden realize you have a whole people dissenting. You have a rebellion on your hand, right? And so you don't want to do that. You want to make Paul an asset to the organization. You want to use Paul to motivate. You want to use Paul to communicate. And you want to use Paul to mentor as a role model. Those kind of things within the organization. So this one is what, 6 marks. So you can easily break down any of those two. Alright, D. Mr. Jack decided that he would hire a training consultant to train the repair technicians to perform repairs in a holistic way. He believes that this would reduce customers' complaints regarding the poor quality of repair. As the HR rep, or the HR human resource manager expert, you have advised him, however, that he should first implement the performance management process so that he would be able to identify the gaps between what needs to be done and what is actually done. Discuss the importance of each of the following strategies in the performance management cycle towards increasing quality output among the computer repair technicians. So you have goal setting, and you have resource allocation, and you have setting timeline. So you have 3 of them that we have to explain as it relates to the performance management cycle. All right, so let's look at those separately. So if we are looking here at the performance management cycle, we're looking at planning, monitoring, reviewing, and rewarding, right? So that's the performance management cycle. And so the first part, that's the question asking us here about goal setting. And so goal setting comes under the planning phase of the performance management cycle. And goal setting involves, as we all know, setting SMART goals, SMART objectives, right? So we're looking at that particular aspect of planning, the SMART objectives, the SMART goals, the SMART goal setting. And so we know that we have to use the SMART approach to set these goals, and that includes these goals must be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely, right? So you have to use the SMART to get the goal setting out of the way. And so, specific speaks to the goal is clearly outlined with detailed information such as what is to be achieved, how well it is to be done, and why it is important. The goals must be measurable. The goal must have a definite and measurable indicator to tell if it has been achieved. It must be achievable. While the goal should stretch the employees, it should not be so lofty as to not be realistically achievable. It must be relevant. The goal is in line with both the employee's job and overall goals of the organization, and it must be timely or time bound. There should be a definite timeline as to when the goal should be completed. So in answering this question, we're looking at the SMART objectives, and you see the long line here to explain this whole thing. So you have to discuss the SMART way and you apply it to this particular job. So if you're looking at specific, of course we may be looking at a goal like, okay, you must repair X amount of computers in X amount of time. Or you can measure and say we must not get more than X amount of callers telling us that our product is not, it was not repaired properly, right? And so you have to set these goals in this using the SMART method in order to, as part of the performance management cycle. So you have the goals, SMART goals, because if you're looking at performance and management, you must have certain thresholds you must hit, right? So you must have certain goals set out first and foremost in the planning phase. You just can't go in blindly. You must have certain goals in order to achieve them. So if it is that we are going to do 10 repairs per week, or say that no repair must take longer than 2, 3, 4 business days, right? Those are your goals. Set those goals, put them in place, and use the SMART method to achieving that particular objective. And of course, the textbook totally spills out what SMART objective setting is about. I did a video on that. You can look at that to get a more in-depth understanding. Then we're looking at resource allocation, still part of the planning process, right? Resource allocation. So you must know how much personnel to put on a particular job, how much capital should be placed on a certain job, how much resources in general in terms of not only capital, not only human, but physical resources, right? Repairing the parts. How much parts must be used to repair whatever computer you're repairing. And so you must be able to know which type of repair must take more human resource, man hours, the kind of thing. Which repair is just a little quick thing. Which kind of repair only requires X amount of money being spent on the physical material, the parts, and those kind of things. So you're not only allocating just the monetary part of it, you're allocating the human resource. So don't just give, let's say you have somebody who's very good at a certain thing. Don't put them where they're not good at. Somebody might be good at reinstalling the software, and then you put them to do the hardware part of things. That might be problematic. You have to be able to know what your human resource entail and how it should be distributed in terms of getting the work done in an efficient manner. What you have to understand is that all of this, right, the question you're asking here, all of it is a part of the first step. All this is planning still, right? All this is planning. But on the planning, you have the goal setting and you have the resource allocation. So again, so you already set the goals, and so you have to know how to achieve those goals using the resources that you have, right? So you have to know, like I said, the human resource, the money resource, the actual physical resource, the parts and those kind of things. So you must know what to allocate to what, so that you don't waste resources, waste time, and waste people's brain and mental capacity. Still on the planning phase of it, setting timelines, right? Setting timelines. Of course, that is a part of it, especially in the computer repairing system, because if you want to make it better, more than likely you might want to have a fast turnaround time, right? Like I said before, you don't want it to be a case where I brought in my computer to repair today, Monday, and I ain't getting it till 2-3 weeks later on. So you must be able to set timelines for each of these goals. So if you're saying that, okay, we want to get the computers out, repaired in a nice, decent way, then it must be done, and it must be done within 3, 4, 5 business days. So that's timeline, setting the timeline. Because if you don't set a timeline, then we are saying that persons who are repairing the computer might take a day time, and then again get you bad reviews for that particular thing, right? So understand that within the performance measurement cycle, the first step is planning, and within planning you have goal setting, where you outline the objectives using the SMART method, and then within that planning you still have the resource allocations. And now you have the goals, you have to now map out, right? Put the resources in place to get those goals achieved, and then still along that line you have to set the timeline to know when these goals are objectives are going to be accomplished. So all of them combined can give you an idea of how Jack can better monitor the performance or manage the performance of his technical team, right? He has to give them proper goals. He must allocate the resources to them, give them the time, the money, the human resource, everything. And then now he must set a timeline for them to get all of these goals achieved if he's to get his business back up in a quality time, right? So that's what this question is asking you guys. All right, good. So that's it for this particular question. That's question 2 for the 2024 Mid-June Cape Management of Business Paper 2. Right, so you know what to do. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell to know when Learn SKN drops another video.